I'm Karl Konrad and welcome to the weekly edition of Australian Immigration News. This production is proudly brought to you by Australian Immigration Law Services right here in Sydney. The big news this week was the leaking of one of the changes to take place in the Migration Review soon to be released. To keep us all excited for the big announcement, the media received their sneak advance preview regarding a streamlined temporary visa for high-income earners. On Wednesday, 7 News was out of the box quickly to let us all know.
An overhaul of migration laws for skilled workers is set to be fast-tracked, with changes coming in just a few weeks. Let's go live to Isabel Mullen in Canberra for the details. Good morning, Izzy. It's the biggest shake-up in decades. What can we expect?
It is Jody. Good morning. It's expected to make it easier for businesses to hire skilled workers from overseas. It means they can be brought in on as little as $120,000 and their visas will be approved in weeks instead of months. The government believes it's become too hard for high-skilled workers to come and work here, with Australia losing talent to major competitors like Canada, where visas are approved much faster.
Early the same morning, the Home Affairs Minister was on Breakfast 7 Sunrise program talking about the migration changes and the review. However, it was really nothing of substance. More again about the details about how the system was broken and needs fixing. No details were provided about how these high-income flyers were going to get their visas. I'll leave a link to the transcript of the breakfast program the Minister herself published on her media release page. So what visa are they talking about? It must be about creating a new stream within the 482 visa subclass, no doubt called the high income stream or something similar. This means a sponsoring business will probably still need approval as a sponsor, and the nomination for the position will likely need approval as well. Such a change is not hard to arrange, and the addition of a new stream to an existing subclass has been used a great deal already, especially in the graduate 485 visa. The following day, on Thursday, the Australian released more leaked details about what lies ahead. A new temporary visa will be created for visa holders who have lodged complaints to Fair Work Australia and are waiting for a resolution in that case about their former employer. They will have a visa to stay until that case is finalised. The article raises questions of whether people will lodge official complaints just so they can stay longer, but in reality I cannot see that happening very often. Even if it does, the benefit of holding employers to account for dodgy practices outweighs any potential misuse. There were also details about a 6-month gap between sponsoring employers being considered. This is to give a more reasonable time for a sponsored 482 visa employee to seek out a new sponsor. Also being considered is to give 482 visa holders the right to move to approved businesses without having to wait for a new nomination to be lodged and approved by the new employer. At the moment, this delay in getting nominations approved is a real hassle. This does not mean a new nomination may not be required though. It just means that you can move first and then the new employer can lodge a new nomination. It has been over a year now since the Minister announced we're going to have a review of the migration system, and we're still waiting on the details on how this is going to be achieved. Currently, we have a joint standing committee on migration that was asked by Claire O'Neill back in November 2022 to report on the role migration plays in supporting this country. The committee is due to hand down its findings in November of this year. It seems then in the meantime to make it appear the government is doing something to fix a system the Minister declared was broken. We are getting dribbles of minor changes along the way. I mean, this change about making a new high income stream could have been done months ago. No doubt soon they will change the 482 occupation list as well to give the short-term 482 visa holders their pathway to PR they so desperately want and rightly deserve. Again, this change could have been well and truly completed by now. It appears the changes to the migration system may be drip-fed one at a time to avoid the constant complaining about the housing crisis. Let's see what happens, so stay tuned. VITAS's ability to function in its role as a competent skill assessment authority has taken another blow this week with the announcement they are suspending their service to process 7 trade occupations. Once again, they are citing a high number of applications as the reason, but one has to wonder that it is really a management problem of not being able to adapt. Those seeking to obtain skill assessments in those occupations will now have to rely upon the TRA, which we all know has its own processing delay issues. So far we have covered 2 stories about the rights of Australian citizen children who are under the age of 18 and have requested the minister to keep their temporary resident parents in Australia while they grow up. These parents have no other visa pathway to remain here, so it's up to the minister to allow them to stay. The only current pathway the minister allows is to lodge a parent visa 143 whilst they remain on shore. There are many problems with this approach, and the 2 biggest are: 1. You need a sponsor since the minor child is under 18 and cannot be the sponsor. Finding an alternative sponsor is extremely difficult since they can only be immediate family members or community organisations. The second major problem is the incredible costs involved, for 2 parents and the bond being just over $100,000 in total. A young family sending children to school, that is way too much money. And why do they even need to pay that amount anyway when they can work and support themselves? Tonight we talk with the Lee family, originally from Vietnam, who face real problems because they cannot find a sponsor. The family have an application before the minister requesting them to be able to remain in Australia so they can raise their Australian citizen child, 11-year-old John. John was born and raised here and goes to a school in Melbourne. Australia is the only home he knows. He plays soccer at the local club and is an active, normal Australian kid. However, his parents Min and Tai and sister Anne are on bridging visas, waiting for the minister to decide if they all can stay in Australia together. Anne is a student nurse doing her final year and works in aged care as an assistant nurse. Her mother Min also works in aged care, and her father Tai runs a trucking business. All worked hard for the last 10 years plus and did what they were asked during the pandemic, whilst most people were in long Victoria lockdowns. Now, this whole family is a great asset to the community, but there is a major problem. They cannot find a sponsor to help them lodge the parent visa the minister is asking them to. And they have tried, approaching more than 10 churches and community organisations. Even the Catholic Church they attend regularly said they could not take on the financial obligations. The minister's office keeps asking who is going to be the sponsor, but there is no answer that can be given, so they are at a stalemate. Unfortunately, they are not the only family in such a predicament. They join us on the show tonight to discuss how difficult it has been for them just to be able to stay in Australia to raise their son. Hi guys, thanks for coming on the show and sharing with us all what you've been going through. Let's get straight to the point. It must be incredibly distressing in dealing with the minister's office, and they keep asking for you to provide a sponsor.
We're really frustrated by, the government asking us to find an organization because it's not realistic, and it creates a burden on the organization that they don't want to take on. And it's also unrealistic because we can support ourselves on our own. And it's like a liability for an organization to take us on.
And you've tried very hard to find a sponsor, haven't you?
We've tried at least 10. We've tried to reach out to at least 10. And although they're willing to be our referees and they're willing to write letters of recommendation and say that we have contributed to the community and we are involved, it's impossible to ask them. It's a very big ask them to sponsor us and to be financially obligated to us.
It really is so unfair. And John, what would be one of your main messages you would like to deliver to the minister?
I would like to ask the minister to create a pathway for my parents to stay here and raise me.
Yes, it's time for the minister to create a pathway for all families who have Australian citizen children under the age of 18. These parents don't need sponsors as they're already working hard in Australia for over 10 years paying taxes and contributing. And that $100,000 request is just so ridiculous. This money should be best spent on John's education and not going into the greedy hands of the government. So Anne, what do you think the minister should do?
Our family don't have relatives living in Australia, so it's very difficult to ask a community organisation to sponsor us. And I think if there was a pathway created where we can prove that we can support ourselves financially, and my parents can prove that they can raise us and give us an education and a quality of living, and we can also have the opportunity to prove that we contribute to the community, that's a viable option. But to ask a community organisation to sponsor us is an impossible pathway.
An impossible pathway indeed. And I would just like to thank you, for I know you were one of those student nurses who were asked to assist us during the pandemic, and Mum too for working in aged care in the hospital, and your dad for driving those trucks around the country delivering vital supplies when towns were in lockdown. What an incredible asset you all are to Australia, and for the minister to delay granting your PR directly is really bewildering. After all, he has granted another family permanent residency who do not have Australian citizen children and have been in Australia only for a short period. I thank all of you for your service to the community. We will keep you up to date with any progress with their minister intervention application. Well, that's all for another week, so stay tuned for all the information you need to know what's happening in the world of Australian immigration. Now, before all of you write in the comments section asking when will be the next 189 invitation round and when will the remaining states open, I'll save you the trouble. We don't know. However, if it doesn't happen in September, then most definitely it should happen in October. Sorry, that is the best I can tell you. Now, if you need assistance in what to do next, or just to be sure your plan is on the right course, we are always here to help. You can book a time by visiting our website, or you can just pick up the phone and speak to a delightful real person whose name is Pat. Don't forget to support this channel by liking all of our videos and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on all the big changes ahead. As always, take care out there and I'll see you next time. So bye for now.